You can be better than yesterday, one day at a time. Have you ever wondered why scrolling through your phone feels effortless, but opening a textbook feels like moving a mountain? Why binge watching Netflix comes naturally, but working on that important project requires superhuman willpower? Here's the thing that most people don't realize. Your brain isn't broken, you're not lazy, you're actually operating exactly as designed, but the system has been hijacked. Think about it this way. When was the last time you had to force yourself to check Instagram? When did you need to set reminders to play your favorite video game? Never, right? These activities practically pull you in like a magnet. But when it comes to studying, exercising, or building something meaningful, suddenly every fiber of your being resists. The culprit behind this strange phenomenon is a tiny chemical messenger in your brain. This molecule doesn't just influence what you do, it literally controls what you want to do. And here's where things get really interesting. Modern technology has weaponized this chemical against you, making easy pleasures irresistible while turning meaningful work into torture. But what if I told you there's a way to reverse this process? What if you could actually rewire your brain to crave the hard stuff, to make challenging work feel as compelling as your current guilty pleasures? That's exactly what we're going to explore today. We're diving deep into something called a dopamine detox, and by the end of this video, you'll understand not just how to do it, but why it works so powerfully. Now, before we go any further, let me be completely honest with you. This isn't some quick hack or life trick that'll solve everything overnight. What I'm about to share requires real commitment and might feel uncomfortable at first. But if you stick with it, the results can be absolutely transformative. So what exactly is this mysterious brain chemical we're dealing with? Scientists call it dopamine, and most people think it's all about pleasure, but that's not quite right. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical, it's the wanting chemical. It's what makes you anticipate, crave, and pursue things. Here's where it gets fascinating. Researchers have done some pretty extreme experiments to understand how powerful this stuff really is. They worked with laboratory mice and implanted tiny electrodes directly into their brains. Every time a mouse pressed a lever, the researchers would artificially stimulate the dopamine system. The results were shocking. These mice became completely obsessed with pressing that lever. They'd ignore food, water, sleep, everything. They'd press it thousands of times until they literally collapsed from exhaustion. The drive was so strong that nothing else mattered. But then the scientists tried the opposite experiment. They blocked dopamine production in another group of mice. These animals became completely apathetic. They wouldn't eat, wouldn't explore, wouldn't do anything. Interestingly though, if you placed food directly in their mouths, they'd still enjoy it and eat it. They just had zero motivation to seek it out themselves. This tells us something crucial about how motivation works. Dopamine isn't about enjoying things, it's about wanting them in the first place. Now, your brain uses this system to decide what's worth pursuing. Activities that promise big dopamine hits get prioritized. Your brain essentially says, do more of that. Activities that offer smaller dopamine rewards get pushed to the back burner. And here's where our modern world creates a massive problem. We're surrounded by activities engineered to trigger enormous dopamine spikes. Social media notifications, video game achievements, streaming services with endless content. These things release dopamine levels far beyond what our ancestors ever experienced. When you constantly flood your brain with these super stimulating experiences, something predictable happens. Your brain adapts. It's like turning up the volume on your stereo so high that normal conversation sounds like whispering. This adaptation process is called tolerance, and you've probably experienced it without realizing it. Someone who rarely drinks alcohol gets tipsy from one beer. Someone who drinks regularly needs several drinks to feel the same effect. Their body has adjusted to higher levels. The exact same thing happens with dopamine. When you regularly expose yourself to high stimulation activities, your brain recalibrates. Suddenly, normal activities like reading, studying, or having a conversation feel incredibly boring. They literally can't compete with the dopamine levels you've grown accustomed to. This creates a vicious cycle. The more you rely on high stimulation activities for entertainment, the less satisfying everything else becomes. Before long, you find yourself unable to focus on anything that doesn't provide instant gratification. But here's the good news. Just like tolerance can develop, it can also be reversed. That's where the dopamine detox comes in. Think of it as hitting the reset button on your brain's reward system. Now, I know what you're thinking, another trendy wellness hack, right? But stick with me here because the science behind this is solid and the results speak for themselves. The basic idea is simple. You temporarily remove all the high stimulation activities from your life. No social media, no video games, no binge watching shows, no mindless internet browsing. You create a controlled environment where your brain can recalibrate to lower levels of stimulation. It's like fasting, but for your dopamine system. During this period, you'll probably feel bored out of your mind. And that's exactly the point. Boredom is your brain's way of saying it needs more stimulation. But instead of reaching for your usual digital distractions, you let that feeling sit there. You allow your dopamine receptors to become more sensitive again. Here's what most people get wrong, though. They think a dopamine detox means sitting in a dark room doing absolutely nothing. That's not it at all. You're still allowed to do things, just not the hyper-stimulating ones. You can go for walks, think about your goals, write in a journal with an actual pen and paper. You can have conversations, do light exercise, organize your space. These activities might seem painfully boring at first, but that's temporary. Think about it like this. Imagine you've been eating nothing but candy for months. Your taste buds become so accustomed to intense sweetness that an apple tastes bland. But if you stop eating candy for a while, suddenly that apple becomes delicious again. Your taste buds reset to appreciate subtler flavors. Your dopamine system works the same way. When you remove the digital candy from your life, simpler pleasures become satisfying again. Now, you don't have to go full extreme right away. You can start with what I call a mini detox. Pick one day per week where you avoid your biggest dopamine trigger. Maybe it's your phone, maybe it's video games, maybe it's Netflix. Whatever pulls you in most powerfully, that's your target. For that one day, you completely avoid that specific activity. You'll probably feel restless, maybe even anxious. Your brain will try to convince you that you need to check just once. Resist that urge. This is your brain learning that it can survive without constant stimulation. What happens during this process is remarkable. Your brain starts to find interest in things you previously ignored. Reading becomes engaging again. Conversations become more meaningful. You might even rediscover hobbies you abandoned years ago. But here's the real game changer. Once your dopamine sensitivity returns, you can strategically use high stimulation activities as rewards for completing challenging tasks. Instead of scrolling social media first thing in the morning, you make it contingent on finishing an hour of focused work. Instead of gaming whenever you feel like it, you earn that time by completing something difficult first. This flips the entire script. Suddenly, hard work becomes the pathway to the things you enjoy. Your brain starts associating challenge with reward. Over time, the challenging work itself becomes more appealing because it's linked to something you want. I've seen people completely transform their lives using this approach. Students who couldn't focus for 5 minutes suddenly find themselves studying for hours. Entrepreneurs who procrastinated for months start making real progress on their projects. The key is understanding that motivation isn't something you either have or don't have. It's something you can actively cultivate by managing your dopamine exposure. Your brain is essentially a prediction machine. It's constantly calculating which activities are worth your time and energy based on expected rewards. When you flood it with easy dopamine hits, it learns to avoid anything that requires effort. But when you reset the system and create the right reward structure, your brain starts predicting that hard work leads to good feelings. That's when everything changes. The most powerful part about this whole process is that it puts you back in control. Instead of being pulled around by whatever app or platform wants your attention, you decide where your focus goes. So there you have it. The reason hard work feels impossible isn't because you lack willpower or discipline. It's because your reward system has been quietly reprogrammed by the digital world around you. But now you know the truth. You understand how dopamine really works, why tolerance develops, and most importantly, how to reverse it. You've got the tools to reset your brain's reward system and train it to crave the things that actually matter. This isn't just about productivity tricks or life hacks. This is about reclaiming control over your own mind. It's about breaking free from the invisible chains that keep you stuck, scrolling, gaming, and consuming instead of creating and growing. The path forward is clear. Start small with a mini detox. Pick your biggest dopamine trigger and avoid it for one day each week. Feel the boredom, sit with the discomfort, and watch as your brain slowly remembers how to find satisfaction in simpler things. Then, when you're ready, flip the script entirely. Make those high stimulation activities contingent on completing meaningful work. Train your brain to see challenge as the pathway to reward. Remember, every moment you spend resetting your dopamine system is an investment in your future self. The version of you that can focus deeply, work consistently, and find genuine satisfaction in building something worthwhile. Your brain is remarkably adaptable. It got hijacked, but it can also be reclaimed. The question isn't whether you can change. The question is whether you will. The choice is yours. Will you stay trapped in the cycle of easy dopamine and endless distraction? Or will you take back control and train your brain to love the work that actually transforms your life? Start today. Your future self will thank you for it.